Hi guys, so today I'm going to start my second vocal series. Last time we looked at the vocal registers and this time I'm going to look at the voice types. So what is a voice type? If a vocal register is like a gear stick of your voice and it can go up and down, do different things, then the vocal type is kind of the car or the vehicle that you're driving. It's pre-designed to work better in some places than others, but it can kind of still move all the way throughout your range, but it's got a pre-placed thing where it excels really well in. So it's kind of where biologically you're designed to excel or do really well or have particular aspects that you're good at, but it can do a lot of other things as well. So that's roughly what a voice type is, like a pre-built kind of area of your voice where it works. So unlike the vocal registers that I did in order of importance, I'm going to start from lowest to highest for the voice types. That's just kind of the easiest way to do it. Now, in total, there are 7 voice types. Some would argue 6, but I'll get to that in like episode 4. But there are 7 that I'm going to talk about, and we're going to start with the lowest one, the bass voice. Okay, so the bass voice is the lowest classification that any man can receive on their voice, or anyone can receive at all. It's the absolute lowest someone's voice can be. You can tell someone's a bass if the voice is really full, really dark, and really deep. They excel at pitches where some voice types, like a baritone or a tenor that I'll get to, would have to kind of scoop down to it, become really quiet, and it wouldn't be that audible. Whereas a bass singer is somebody whose thickness of their voice in these pitches, particularly the second and the third octave, rarely going above that. It does happen, but not naturally. It's where their voice really excels, really has depth and darkness, and also has a bit more power. As I say, other voice types don't have too much power in those pitches, whereas a bass, that's where their voice really shines and really gets the most of their connection with their chest voice, down in the second octave, sometimes third. So what's the average vocal range of a bass singer? Now, firstly, I'm not going to take into account someone's subcategory because different bass singers have kind of different abilities going low and going high. It's just for your average bass singer. Also, I'm not going to take into account any registers other than chest voice and to a point mixed voice. Not that many bass singers really use a lot of mixed voice anyway, but I'm not going to count vocal fry because in some cases that can add a whole lot more to their voice that I don't really want to talk about in their natural range. And then head voice is kind of a coordination that with enough practice anybody can get really high in. So as I mentioned before, Tim Faust, who's the bass for Home Free, he I believe has once hit an A5 in a head voice. Which is kind of unusual for a bass, but it can happen. So with enough practice in that area, people can do a lot of things because it's generally just kind of a more breathy airflow anyway. So I don't want to count that in their natural range. So if we're just looking at chest voice, your average bass, you'll hear a few different notes chucked about here and there. I'm going to say between around a D2 and a C4. Now, that's a good starting point because most basses, if they are a bass, have a really thick, deep voice. Some can only get to about an E2, but D2 is kind of a good place to look at it. Some can get a lot lower, but your average bass, a D2 will be a good solid note for them, I would say. Also, because their voice is so thick, they would start belting or try to add more connection and more power in their chest voice as they go higher earlier. So whereas a baritone or a tenor would start doing that in the high third octave or the low fourth octave, a bass is they'd have to start shouting or belting around the lower to mid third octave. That's how deep and thick their voices are in some cases. So I'd say a middle C is a good starting point for a higher note of a chest voice or a bass. Some can go higher if they have enough practice. As I say, Tim Faust, who has a stupid range, can do most of the fourth octave. But your average bass, mainly because of where they tend to sing in the contemporary music scene, don't have a lot of practice above there. So they generally will kind of stop around the C4, maybe a little bit higher. So yeah, that's what I'd say an average range for the average bass singer is. Okay, so a bass's real vocal strength is in the lower chest voice. Because their voices are so naturally deep, they have this automatic feeling of knowing exactly what it feels like to sing and speak in a really deep, thick coordination. So their lower chest voice is already getting a lot of practice just from the way they speak. Like when Muslims speak, they're down there all the time. And like obviously I can't project that very well, but that's kind of where their pitch starts, where they speak. So they've got a lot of practice down there. So because of that, they have an automatic feeling of this really thick, mega powerful, deep voice. So down there they can project, it's really natural for them and it sounds amazing and very healthy and very good. And they can support their notes unbelievably due to the thickness and depth of their tone and their more chest dominant coordination. Another place a bass sounds really nice in is in the third octave sometimes. Just imagine your own head. If you placed you doing your lowest notes like a da and that feeling but bring that feeling, obviously you can't do it, but imagine a bass bringing that feeling up into your tessitura. So them singing in the third octave in your comfortable range with this really rich, thick, mega deep tone. That sounds actually really, really nice, and I'm kind of sad that a lot of bass singers don't bother singing up there more, because hearing a really deep voice go a little bit higher actually sounds wonderful, and it's quite rare, and it's something you don't get here too much. So it is really nice. So yeah, their two main vocal strengths are in the lower chest range and then their kind of mid voice. Because of how deep and powerful and thick their voices are, it's really natural down there and sounds really strong and really powerful, and sounds really different and unique up in the third octave. Another potential vocal strength for most basses, if they've practiced this technique a lot, is their vocal fry. So remember in the vocal fry episode I mentioned the mix of chest and vocal fry? A bass, because their voices are naturally low, that'll be a few notes lower than mine is, and it sounds so unbelievable. It's actually a bit crazy how that can sound sometimes. It's really powerful and really mega thick, and it's at like a C2 or a B1 or an A1, and it's powerful. It's like me doing a regular that's how powerful it can sound due to how low the voices are. Of course, some basses also can bring the and drag that all the way down. Some cases it can get into the 0 octave. That's how powerful and how deep a bass's voice can be. Often than not, you're looking at more like a D1, E1 sort of area for that noise, just the crackly noise. And the vocal fry growl can kind of get most basses to an F1. And as somebody commented on my video, Tim Faust at that A0 was a vocal fry growl. So that's how, again, amazing his range is. So some people, as I say, can drag their voice really, really, really far down with the vocal fry creaky sound. Tim Storms, who is the record holder for the world's lowest note, hit a G-7 in that technique. Now, that isn't really a musical note, it's just a frequency, and machine had to pick it up, but he said he could feel it in his throat. That's how deep his voice was. Mind you, he apparently has vocal cords that are thicker than, twice as thick as most people. That's at least what he says. But yeah, as I say, so in the vocal fry, which is another real strength of a vocal bass, they can go super mega low, sometimes really powerful and hit first octave notes that you won't understand. And then sometimes it's a little bit less powerful. So yeah, it just depends what they want to do with it. Also, a bass is pretty much the only voice type you'll hear singing consistently in the first octave, depending on what they're doing. Like in choir music or in gospel music, they can sing frequent low ones, low first octave notes, and they're the only voice type that can pretty much get below a G1 in any coordination. So yeah, they're a really unique, interesting voice type, and those are their main vocal strengths. Okay, so what's a bass's main vocal weakness? Now, due to where they sing in the music industry, as I say, gospel music, a lot of bass parts in opera and in a cappella music where they do the bass lines, they have little to no proficiency in the fourth or fifth octave, unlike most voice types, if not every other voice type. They just have no real reason to sing up there, because if you're doing a bass line for your group, you'll have like baritones and tenors doing all the higher parts, so you don't need to worry about practicing those. Some will, as I say, Tim Faust did, because that man's range is absolutely ludicrous. But most basses, or a lot of basses, don't practice in those areas, so they have little to no resonance or practice or feeling or mixed voice or anything in the fourth or fifth octave, because it's just not what they need to do. So yeah, basically to summarize, a bass's strength is in their lows. Their low notes are really good and really powerful. Their mid notes are okay. Generally, they sound really nice and a bit sexy sometimes, but it's not like their main place, but they can do it okay. And then their high notes are generally lacking because they just have no real reason to practice them. So that being said, let's have a look at some subcategories of bass singers, because there are a few different ones out there. Alright, so let's just have a look at 3 different subcategories of bass singers. First one, a light bass or a bass baritone. Now, these guys generally still have the deeper tone, but the tone may be a little bit lighter, and they may have a slightly higher extension to their voice. which makes them almost sound baritonal when they're singing a little bit higher, or vice versa, it could be a baritone with a particularly good low extension. Generally, these guys are really comfortable down to an F2, it's still really powerful there. They could probably go lower, but I'd say they're a couple notes higher than your average bass. Second, a basso profundo. This is essentially the lowest form of bass. It means dark, deep, heavy bass. Often they're found in opera and the specific parts written for them because their voices can generally stay full and powerful to around a C2, sometimes scooping a little bit lower, but they are essentially your lower ranged basses. And third one I want to look at is an octavist. Now these guys make no sense. They're absolutely crazy. Generally they're in kind of Russian choir music, and because apparently Russia have lots of deep voiced men, they sometimes have the ability to take their natural voice down to an A1, in some extreme cases an F1, and then in some more extreme cases even lower. But yeah, basically they just sound ridiculously low and powerful all the time. Actually, don't take my word for it, listen to this. The last thing I'm going to do is actually play a few clips of actual bass singers, so instead of just me rambling on and talk about it, you can hear what they sound like for yourself. So the first one I'll show you is Tim Faust. I've mentioned him a lot already. Okay, the second person I want to look at is Mikhail Zlatopolsky. He's a Russian octavist, and he held the lowest note in Guinness for a while, E flat 1. Just listen to this madness. And last one is the absolute king of basses, J.D. Sumner. He held the Guinness record for a while until Tim Storms and two other guys broke it. I don't recall their names. But yeah, he was a friend of Elvis. He sang at Elvis's funeral, and Elvis brought him out to amaze people because his voice was so legendarily low.
I'm going over Jordan. I am going over
Okay, thank you for watching this episode. It has been a little bit longer than I thought it was going to be, but apparently there's a lot to talk about, and the bass voice is really interesting. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you actually watched it all the way through. And if you guys want to stay tuned for the next episode, it's on the baritone voice. So for now, see you later.